Today we will start our next topics from the chapter A Young Country. Please go through page number 141 to 150. Our first topic is founding Pakistan's military. The British had considered the division of subcontinent's armed forces the most difficult aspect of partition. They proud of military forces they had, and many could not bear the thought of tearing them apart. On partition, Pakistan was to receive 30% of the military stores in the subcontinent, despite assurance given by India, seemed reluctant to hand these over. Some equipment did not arrive, or old or worn out supplies were sent. From the lead story of Hindustan Times in July 12, 1947, it was reported, Division of Armed Forces on communal lines, India gets 32 naval vessels, Pakistan 16, 15 infantry regiment, 12 armored corps unit, 18 and half regiments and 61 engineer units have been allotted to India. Please check source 8.25. Field Marshal biography tells what he wrote to the British Prime Minister during the period of division of military assets. The Indian government is determined to prevent Pakistan receiving her just share, or indeed anything of large stocks of reserve, arms, equipment, stores, etc., held in and depots in India. At the partition took over about 150 Army Air Force troops out of a total 420,000 in subcontinent. Pakistan new military was short of 1,500 officers. Apart from the Staff College at Quetta, Pakistan did not have a military training academy. Pakistan was forced to use 500 British officers for many months. There were other problems too. The coastline near 1,000 miles long, Pakistan needed a strong navy, but began with very few ships. At length, India paid Pakistan 60 million rupees as a compensation, and the money was used to build an ordnance factory at Wa near Rawalpindi. The next topic is building the economy. The huge influx of Muslim refugees from India caused serious economic disruption in Pakistan. The source 8.27 explained the economic problem created were not going to be resolved quickly. Richard Simon, in his book From the Making of Pakistan, has written, the economic dislocation caused was great. West Punjab obtained a considerable surplus of agriculturalists, weavers, potters, shoemakers, and new artisans. In the market towns, it was impossible for the peasant to sell the crops because the Hindu wholesaler had left. The West Punjab estimated that it lost 75% of its nurses at partition. Lahore, for example, Punjab's most important city, the problem was the worst. Its population before partition was third Hindu and Sikh. These minorities had owned fourth-fifth of Lahore's factories and two-thirds of its shops. Almost all traders in the mile-long Anarkali Bazaar were non-Muslim. With the traders gone, Muslims were forced to take action. Chaudhry Muhammad Ali has also described in his book From the Emergence of Pakistan, it was the common belief among Hindus and Muslims alike the Muslim lacked an aptitude for business. Now with the departure of Hindus, these false inhibitions were swept away. Please go through source 8.28 to read it thoroughly. Our next topic is economic madness. Chaudhry Muhammad Ali has also wrote in his book From the Emergence of Pakistan, the British had administered the entire subcontinent as a single economic unit. Free trade within the whole area as a single tariff, unified system of currency and credit. British, a network of railways and telegraphs had helped to integrate the economy. No regard had been paid by the British to the balanced development of various regions. The concept of planned development was foreign to British rule, concerned as it was primarily with defense and the maintenance of law and order. For the reason given in this source 8.29, the regions which made up Pakistan were economically undeveloped. Historian Michel Edwards has commented that economically the partition other criterion was possible. Example of this economic madness can be seen in both East and West Pakistan. For example, partition deprived West Pakistan of control of much of the water supply on which its economy depended. A large area of West Punjab got its electricity from the Mandi hydroelectric works, which were now in India. 70% of jute supply of world was grown in East Pakistan. East Pakistan did not contain the former Bengal capital, Kolkata. Next topic is Pakistan's strengths and weaknesses. Subcontinent's major ports of Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, together with the most important industrial areas, were all within India. Majority of people in Pakistan were poor, about 90% lived in rural areas. Captain O.H.K. Speight, Captain O.H.K. Speight, a British geographer, described industrial development in Pakistan was pathetically small. Few large towns and only 8 had a population of more than 1 lakh. Economic matters were concerned. Pakistan's main strength lay in its agriculture and food production. Partition left Pakistan with little help. Its industrial development, for example, received only 10% of the subcontinent's industry, 5% of electrical output, 10% of mineral deposit. Captain O.H.K. Speight, writing about Pakistan mineral wealth in 1947, please go through source 8.31, in which he described the mineral and power position in Pakistan as a weaker one. Also described the possibility of really scale oil skirts in Sindh, where active prospecting has reached the boring stage. There is an ample salt from evaporation of sea water in Sindh, and from the Salt Range mines in the Punjab and Balochistan produced about half of all Indian output of chromite. Next topic is developing Pakistan industry. Industrial policy statement of April 1948, Jinnah made it clear that industrial development was an urgent matter. Government announced several measures to develop country economically. Number 1, on July 1st, 1948, State Bank Pakistan was opened with the intention to help develop the economy. Number 2, factories were to be set up to manufacture goods from homegrown raw material. Sugar factory was begun at Mardan and industrial trading estate at Karachi, Hyderabad and Sakkar. Number 3, government-run industries were set up to produce arms, hydroelectric power and equipment for railways, telegraph and telephone system. Private companies were encouraged. Number 5, foreign investment was welcomed. Number 6, financial measures were to be taken which would help the growth of industry and business. Despite of good intentions of government, the measures were not very successful. One reason for this was the shortage of people experienced in the industry. Hamza Alvi, in his book Building Blocks of New Pakistan State, on March 23, 2003, has written, there was no Pakistani industry class that might have given a trust and direction to our economic policies. Leadership of Pakistan movement had come mainly from urban middle class seekers, government jobs, and English educated professional classes. Could not conceive of any program of industrialization. Please go through source 8.33 to read it out. The next topic is the death of Jinnah. Opening ceremony of State Bank on July 1st, 1948 was the Qaid's last public appearance. For years, he had refused to take advice from doctors or his sister Fatima Jinnah regarding his health. Fatima begged him to take a holiday. He only replied her, "Have you ever heard of a general taking a holiday? When the army is fighting for its very survival. Work, 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 and you are bound to succeed," was Qaid-e-Azam's advice to others. He worked himself too hard for his own good. As 1948 advanced, the Qaid's reserve of strength drained away. He was under a great deal of strain, suffering. The refugees, Fatima Jinnah reported, brought tears to his eyes. He worked in a frenzy, consolidate Pakistan, and of course totally neglect his health. She reported, at last only his remarkable strength of character and willpower kept Qaid going as the battle against lung cancer and TB. Extra pressure was determination to keep the severity of his illness secret from his people and the world. He believed that were it known, it would cause further instability in difficult times. On September 11, 1948, father of the nation died in Karachi at the age 71. Pakistan, just a year old, had lost its leading political figure. From Jinnah's Pakistan and Islamic identity, Akbar S. Ahmed has written, after the death of Jinnah, once the yearly euphoria, excitement following the creation of Pakistan had waned, the problems confronting the new state grew, the issues of ethnicity, corruption, nepotism, and mismanagement, and a reversion to old established tribal and feudal patterns. International problems like the Kashmir issue loomed large in foreign policy. Please go through source 8.35. Jinnah's role had been a vital. Now the question was, without his leader, would Pakistan continue the progress after Jinnah's death? Our next topic is Pakistan in the second half of the 20th century, running the country. As Liaquat Ali Khan was already well-respected Prime Minister, shared many of Jinnah's belief about how Pakistan should be run and developed, effectively took over as a leader of Pakistan after Jinnah. Even he was not a president. However, Pakistan was still a very young country which had not yet fully established. The years that followed until 1958 were politically unstable. There were power struggles, resulted in 6 different prime ministers. One major achievement was the adoption of a new constitution on March 2, 1956. Here are the points. Pakistan as an Islamic republic and a federation with 2 provinces. East and West Pakistan. Number 2, President over the rule Governor General with the Prime Minister holding the real power. Number 3, Urdu and Bengali as the two national languages. Number 4, rights and freedoms such as the right of vote, right to freedom of religion. Next topic is the regime of Ayub Khan. In October 1958, the first period of military rule began under General Ayub Khan. Martial law was in place until 1962 when a new constitution was introduced, establishing a presidential form of government. Ayub Khan was the president, had all the power, new National Assembly was appointed and political parties were allowed to return. Under the period of stability brought by this rule, Pakistan experienced significant economic and industrial growth. Foreign policy, Ayub Khan developed a Pakistan relationship with USA and China. India declined this even further and reached a low point when they went on a war over Kashmir in 1965. War was inconclusive and many Pakistanis blamed Ayub Khan for this failure. Although Ayub Khan secured an election victory over Fatima Jinnah in 1965, there was increasing discontent with his rule. In 1969, Khan resigned. Martial law was again declared by General Yahya Khan became the president. Next, Bangladesh Liberation War. Tensions between East and West Pakistan were coming to a head. November 12, 1970, huge cyclone devastated East Pakistan. Many people were killed, around 500,000. The response from the central government based in West Pakistan was criticized for being too slow and insufficient. Elections for National Assembly were held. The Pakistan People's Party won a majority in West Pakistan, led by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who had resigned in 1967 from Ayub Khan's government. East Pakistan, the Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, promised voters more power to provincial governments, which would make East Pakistan almost independent from West Pakistan. Awami League won a huge majority in East Pakistan, giving it a clear majority in National Assembly. After Yahya Khan's negotiation to persuade the Awami League to share power failed, he suspended the National Assembly in March 1971, and East Pakistan went on a general strike. Yahya Khan again tried to reach an agreement but failed, and more government troops arrived to keep order. Mujibur Rahman demanded independence for East Pakistan. He was arrested on 26th of March. The Sovereign People's Republic of Bangladesh was announced in a secret radio broadcast from Dhaka. Government reacted strongly and banned all political activities in Pakistan. India declared its support for the people of Bengal, began building up its forces on the border with East Pakistan. As a result, relations between Pakistan and India deteriorated rapidly. Finally, war broke out on December 3rd. Next day, India, helped by its ally, the Soviet Union, attacked East Pakistan. Pakistan was forced to surrender on December 17. Yahya was forced to resign and Bhutto became the new president. On 21st December 1971, Republic of Bangladesh was officially declared. Mujib was released and became the country's first prime minister. Our next topic is Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's rule from 1971 till 1977. Bhutto faced many problems at the start of his reign. Bhutto faced many problems at the start of his reign, replaced many of the army's leaders, improved relations with India so that prisoners of war were returned, and undertook many reforms to improve the economy, food production, and education. A new National Assembly was held, confirming People's Party as the governing party. In 1973, a new constitution became a part of law was heavily based on 56 constitution. In this, the role of president became largely figurehead, with the real power being held by the prime minister. In 1977 election of the People's Party won huge victory, but they were accused of fixing the result, and street protest began. Bhutto offered some concession to opposition parties, but martial law declared. However, army leaders brought Bhutto's concession would lead to great unrest. On July 5th, 1977, army seized power and arrested all other political leaders. Chief of Army Staff Ziaul Haq was in charge of Pakistan. Bhutto was accused of ordering the murder of a political opponent, found guilty, and ordered hanged on 4th of April 1979. Next topic is about General Ziaul Haq. Many changes, specifically Islamization. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in December 1979, the USA began providing unconditional economic and military support to Pakistan in order to use the country as a base for anti-Soviet activities. It improved Pakistan's economy and international standing. Ziaul Haq had promised elections when peace was restored, but nothing happened till 1985. Political parties were involved. December 30th, 1985, martial law was lifted and constitution restored to 1973. Although Zia still remained firmly in control, new elections were planned in October 1988. But before they could take, on August 1988, Zia was being killed in a plane crash. Next topic is Benazir Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif. The election of October 1988 did take place. People's Party, who was being led by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's daughter Benazir, who won the election, became the first female leader of a Muslim country. People's Party did not have majority, so they had to form a coalition government. Bhutto had many opponents as well supporters. There were also still tensions in the country, especially in Sindh, which led to widespread riots and fighting in which many were killed. On 6th August 1990, the president dismissed the government. New elections were held 2 months later. Nawaz Sharif became the prime minister. Sharif introduced some new policies, tried and improved the economy, but as well facing continuing street violence. Government was also rocked by a savings bank scandal. Election like Benazir Bhutto had been in 1990. April 1993, Sharif and his government was accused for corruption. Elections were held in October. Benazir Bhutto again became the prime minister. Nawaz Sharif, opposition leader, this time leading the Pakistan Muslim League. Bhutto's government was again to be short-lived. Her husband was accused for fraud and being involved in political murders and forced into exile, and the government was dismissed. Nawaz Sharif became prime minister for the second time, and after election which were held in February 1997. Sharif amended the constitution so the president could not dismiss the prime minister on National Assembly. This appeared to make the country more democratic. Sharif also introduced measures that increased repression. Journalists who criticized Sharif were arrested. Pakistan's economy was already fragile. In 1998, economic sanctions were imposed by USA and some other countries because Pakistan had carried out nuclear tests. Economy almost collapsed and Musharraf announced that the army had decided to take control. Next topic is developing the country. Let's go through all the developing phases of Pakistan from its independence. Economic growth under Ayub Khan. Ayub Khan brought more industry to Pakistan, also encouraged small industrialists and businesses. He believed he benefits the economic growth were very unevenly distributed. Majority of Pakistan's economy was owned by a very small group of people. Umar Noman, as described from Pakistan political and economic history since 1947. Between 1958 and 1963, Pakistan industrial growth performance was considerably above the average of Asia. Industrial production in Pakistan grew 72% over the period. Please go through source 8.38. Next topic is nationalization under Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Bhutto nationalized many industries to try and reduce inequalities between rich and poor, increase industrial production and investment. This proved to be a massive task for federal minister. Nevertheless, economic growth did increase and inflation, which had been 25%, was reduced to 6% in 1976. Bhutto government made sweeping changes to education, try and increase the literacy rate, only 25% in 1973. Mainly challenges and the rate of only improved by 1% after 5 years. Bhutto medical services in Pakistan did improve by number of doctors and nurses fell during his rule, so accessing healthcare was still difficult for most people. Next topic is Islamization under Ziaul Haq. Zia wanted his government to be more in line with Islam. In 1979, a series of Islamic laws were introduced and Islamic punishment were also introduced for some existing offences. Taxes were introduced on profit, savings also introduced to increase zakat. Economy had improved due to Western investment after the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan, but the cost was high as drug trafficking and gun smuggling hugely increased, leading to more crime and street violence. Benazir Bhutto's reforms. She wanted to move away from pro-Islamic policies of Zia and introduced social and health reforms. Her lack of a majority in the National Assembly, political instability, and short time in power meant that many of her promises were not fulfilled. But she did end the ban on trade unions, release political prisoners, began spreading electricity into rural areas. In her second term, she announced plans for women police stations, courts and banks, but nothing further was done. Next topic is Nawaz Sharif's privatization. Sharif believed that nationalization was holding the economy back, so private ownership and investment was allowed in some industries such as shipping, electricity, and telecommunications. He also introduced some large projects which he believed would lead to economic growth. such as Barota hydropower project and improved transport infrastructure through the building of motorways, although this suffered for many delays. Huge amount of government investment required for these projects and reduction in overseas investment after the fall of Soviet Union put huge pressure on government finances and Pakistan's economy. This political instability in 1990s and the sanction imposed in 1998 brought the economy close to collapse. Success. In 1947, many people around the world believed that Pakistan would only last for few years. This appeared to be more likely after Jinnah's death. However, despite of many difficulties, turbulent times, Pakistan continued to develop and prosper. By the end of 20th century, Pakistan had fully established itself as a country and became a important member of the international community. That's all for today. Please go through all these pages from 141 to 150. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.